Culture Europe Conference, Democracy First. I would kindly ask you to take your seats. We also have seats available in the upper floors, and there's further chairs at the back of the conference room too. Thank you very much. And also our fishbowl experts are kindly requested to see it as well. Thank you very much. Dear friends, good afternoon. My name is Maria Freitas, and I'm Policy Advisor at the Foundation for European Progressive Studies. I'm here on behalf of Secretary General of FEPS, Dr. Ernst Stetter, who excuses for not being able to join us here today, as well as FEPS leadership, FEPS President Massimo D'Alema, for the reasons that we are currently having our General Assembly, and therefore I was asked to moderate and facilitate today's discussion. So welcome to the flagship conference of FEPS, the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, and also thank you very, very much to the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament, as well as Europe Together, a number of FEPS member foundations and its partners. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all here to our FEPS flagship conference. And today we are kicking off a very important discussion, a discussion about democracy. Because for us, democracy comes first. And we're very happy to provide you, our participants, with an impressive network of progressive thinkers that are coming from all corners of our union. And together with you, together with our experts, we are here expected to debate, to discuss, to listen, and to engage on how we can ameliorate our European Union. How can we reform and advance our political project? Now, before I give the floor to our dear, dear friend, President Gianni Pittella, President of the S&D Group in the European Parliament, for his important input on the challenges facing Europe and the role of the progressives in facing them, I would like to thank you, of course, for being here with you, for honoring us with your presence, because we really, really appreciate it, and it's very, very important. Now, for FEPS, we are very, very proudly always abiding by the 3P motto: progressive, participatory, and positive debate. This is what we strive for as being the only progressive European think tank at the European level in Brussels. We want to provoke and stimulate progressive thinking in Europe and for our European project. But before I give the floor to President Pittella, I am here to inform you as well a bit on some technicalities. So, translation is available for those of you who require it in English, French, and Italian. And I'm kindly inviting you as well to participate in our social medias online. Our teams will be there to listen to you. So you are kindly invited to use the hashtags Europe Together and Democracy First. For that, I also have a kind request that I really, really hope you will abide by. We are using a very, very nice platform. We're using an application that is called Slido. It's very, very easy to use. You just need to log in on your mobile, laptop, and you type in Slido. You'll be directed to our platform, and there you are kindly required to introduce the access code, which is democracy. Your tweets, the tweet feed will here be available for you, and this is very important that all of you participate, that all of you log in, because we will have a vote. Now, if my friend Dana is ready, I will wait a bit that you log in, that you access the platform, so that we can screen the question that we have prepared for you. All right, so here we have our first poll. Were you able to access? The access code is democracy. And the question that we have for you is, are you happy to be with us here today? I hope yes, yes. If you're here, it's because you want to listen, you want to engage, you want to discuss with FEPS in Europe together. All right, 77%, not bad. Some no's, how come? 80%. All right, so you're happy to be with us, and I'm certainly confident that you're very happy to listen to President Gianni Pittella for his opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Grazie a tutte e a tutti per essere qui. Saluto le tante personalità presenti che daranno vita ad un dibattito, ad un confronto sicuramente molto interessante. Voglio salutare Massimo D'Alema, anche se non è presente, ringraziarlo per l'eccellente lavoro svolto. Voglio ringraziare la FEPS per questo importante momento di riflessione sulla democrazia, tema che sembra a me essere molto attuale, soprattutto oggi. Infatti la democrazia europea si trova di fronte ad un passaggio storico. Il sistema liberal-democratico appare in sofferenza. Le istituzioni e i corpi intermedi attraversano una crisi di rappresentatività. Partiti, sindacati. Prova ne è anche la crescita dell'astensionismo, della non partecipazione al voto. Le radici di questa crisi sono due soprattutto, una legata al sistema politico e l'altra legata all'evoluzione del capitalismo. Per quanto riguarda l'evoluzione del sistema capitalistico, voglio sottolineare che le democrazie rappresentative europee si sono sviluppate in un contesto in cui la sovranità politica e il territorio coincidevano. Avevamo un governo, un territorio e avevamo sistemi sociali omogenei caratterizzati dalla preponderanza dello Stato nazionale. Dentro le frontiere nazionali era possibile costruire meccanismi di rappresentanza efficaci. Penso ad esempio ai partiti di massa. Per come li abbiamo conosciuti, io ho conosciuto i partiti di massa in Italia, penso alla Prima Repubblica, al Partito Comunista, alla Democrazia Cristiana, al Partito Socialista, per parlare dell'Italia. Questi partiti di massa avevano un territorio di riferimento definito e un contesto nazionale. Mentre per ciò che riguarda il capitalismo, il nostro capitalismo era radicato in determinati territori e anch'esso era sottoposto alla sovranità nazionale. Insomma, lo Stato-nazione era lo spazio principale della democrazia rappresentativa. Faccio questa premessa per dire che è cambiato completamente questo scenario. Ed è cambiato perché c'è stata la globalizzazione, perché la globalizzazione, soprattutto finanziaria, ma non solo finanziaria, ha messo in ginocchio il riferimento principale che si aveva sul piano democratico, che era lo Stato-nazione. E tuttavia vi è stata globalizzazione finanziaria ed economica, ma non vi è stata la globalizzazione della politica. Cioè, mentre è andata avanti la globalizzazione, quindi le frontiere sono state abbattute sul piano dell'economia e della finanza, lo stesso non può dirsi per la questione politica. È vero, voi mi potrete obiettare, ma noi abbiamo costruito l'Unione Europea, è vero, verissimo, che è una risposta sovranazionale che in qualche modo dovrebbe maneggiare una evoluzione legata alla globalizzazione. ma l'Unione Europea, per come è stata pensata, è stata incentrata attorno al mercato unico e non attorno ad una primaria funzione politica. Dobbiamo dirlo con grande chiarezza, senza ovviamente nascondere tutti i pregi che ha avuto l'edificio europeo e tutti i successi che ha avuto l'edificio europeo, però è il connotato attorno al quale si è costruito, nell'idea che facendo il mercato unico poi si sarebbe fatta anche la politica. Così è stato solo in parte, e noi viviamo in questa simmetria. Abbiamo una globalizzazione economica e finanziaria ampia, grande, immensa, e abbiamo un soggetto politico debole. È una sorta di anatra zoppa, una gamba funziona e l'altra funziona poco poco. È questo gap che noi dobbiamo superare, dando all'Unione Europea un connotato eminentemente politico, e noi socialisti dobbiamo fare questo, dobbiamo dare all'Unione Europea una funzione eminentemente politica, deve diventare l'Unione Europea un'attrice politica che non azzeri gli Stati-nazione, ma che abbia la potestà vera sulla politica estera, sulla politica di difesa e di sicurezza, oltre che sulle politiche economiche e finanziarie, perché oggi abbiamo una moneta in tasca, molti di noi europei, non tutti, ma non abbiamo un governo della zona euro. Oggi con Moscovici abbiamo rilanciato la necessità di un ministro delle finanze della zona euro, ma che sia un vero ministro, un ministro dentro la Commissione europea, non quello che vuole fare Schäuble, e cioè una sorta di autorità autonoma, slegata dal contesto e dal controllo democratico del Parlamento, senza un bilancio adeguato e senza capacità fiscale. Ripartire dalla democrazia vuol dire anche prendere di petto la questione del rapporto tra democrazia ed economia, e anche il tema della questione dell'evasione fiscale, perché oggi, accanto alle altre questioni che ho cercato di annotare, vi è questa grande questione dell'evasione fiscale, che permette a grandi imprese multinazionali di evadere ogni anno in Europa centinaia di miliardi di euro. Si tratta di un attacco allo Stato, alla sovranità democratica. È il tentativo di poteri mastodontici di sottrarsi a responsabilità e controlli democratici. Porre al centro la questione della democrazia in Europa vuol dire anche cambiare modo di fare politica. La mia opinione, che vi dico con molta franchezza, è che bisogna riscoprire la forza della polarizzazione politica. E mi rivolgo innanzitutto a noi stessi, a noi socialisti, a noi progressisti. Negli ultimi decenni in Europa le forze progressiste hanno dato l'idea, a volte, di rinunciare ad un progetto vero di trasformazione radicale del sistema economico. E mentre gli equilibri economici crescevano, le forze progressiste perdevano la propria caratteristica di cambiamento. In più, pezzi della sinistra non si sono limitati ad accettare in maniera passiva la globalizzazione finanziaria e la supremazia del mercato. Diciamo la verità, anche in mezzo a noi, nella nostra famiglia, c'è stato chi ha teorizzato che era lì il nostro essere, che era nelle forze miracolistiche e miracolose del mercato, la potestà e il potere di cambiare la nostra società. È stato un errore grave. La fine del muro di Berlino avrebbe dovuto spingerci a scegliere un altro modello di globalizzazione, basato sul nuovo sistema multilaterale, sulla diffusione della democrazia non per via militare ma attraverso una grande intesa per lo sviluppo mondiale, un patto che unisse le migliori energie del cambiamento, anche del cambiamento sostenibile, dello sviluppo sostenibile, rinunciando troppo spesso alla capacità critica la sinistra ha anche privato i nostri sistemi democratici di quella voce critica che ne garantiva la capacità di autoriforme. La democrazia vive quando c'è battaglia di idee, quando pur nella condivisione delle regole del gioco si ha il coraggio di essere diversi e di non ricercare sempre a tutti i costi punti d'incontro. La via da seguire quindi, e vado a concludere, per rafforzare la democrazia europea è quella del ritrovato confronto e scontro tra idee e posizioni diverse. E per me ciò vuol dire tornare alla dialettica bipolare tra destra e sinistra. Non accetto l'idea che destra e sinistra siano superati. Non accetto l'idea di considerare sullo stesso piano chi vuole un'Europa sociale e chi non la vuole. Non accetto di considerare sullo stesso piano chi vuole un'austerità cieca e sorda ai problemi della povera gente e alla necessità di rilancio economico e chi invece vuole cambiare le regole di bilancio, superare l'austerità. Non accetto che si metta sullo stesso piano chi vuole un commercio internazionale, sì un commercio internazionale, ma profondamente cambiato, con un'agenda progressista che non trascuri i diritti ambientali, i diritti sociali, i diritti umani. Io non metto sullo stesso piano chi fa affari con i più brutali dittatori, chi non si cura dell'Africa e delle grandi questioni che vivono i cittadini africani, i giovani, le ragazze e i ragazzi. Io non posso mettere sullo stesso piano chi ha un'altra agenda politica, valoriale. Vogliamo lasciare stare le ideologie? Lasciamo stare le ideologie, ma i valori no, sono un'altra cosa. Una cosa sono i valori e conseguentemente i programmi socialisti e progressisti e una cosa sono i valori e i programmi della destra conservatrice in Europa e nel mondo. Questi sono i due punti bipolari che devono popolare la democrazia europea e se noi torniamo a questo schema e se noi siamo realmente alternativi alla destra conservatrice e moderata, vedrete, piano piano si prosciugheranno anche le forze antisistema, le forze antieuropee, perché quelle forze hanno anche lucrato sul fatto di dire che noi siamo tutti uguali, che noi siamo tutti establishment, che noi siamo tutti un potere univoco, senza distinzioni, tutto grigio. No, il grigio è un colore che non mi piace. Io voglio il rosso e il bianco, voglio la polarizzazione che dà di nuovo forza alla democrazia europea.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Gianni Pittella, for bringing about the challenges that European democracy is facing, notably political polarization, the issues facing the EU economic governance, how can we make it more democratic? A lot of input that President Pittella provided to our next debate, which I'm very, very happy to open. But before that, we also have a special moment because we are so happy that you're happy to be here with us. We're so happy to have the presence of President Pittella with us. So I have our friend here with the camera, my dear friend Kate from FEPS, and we would just like you to say democracy first, and we take a picture to immortalize this moment. Can we do that all together? Democracy first. Yes. Are we good? Thank you very much. All right. So now I have the pleasure to hand over the moderation to Béatrice Delvaux, who is editor-in-chief of Le Soir, and who will have a very, very interesting role here in moderating a fishbowl debate. So stay tuned for more. Thank you. Béatrice?
So, hello everybody. I don't know if you're familiar with the fishbowl debate, are you?
No.
Yes, so it's my first one, so I need maybe a little help during the debate, so if you are kind enough to help me to participate a lot, because it's the point, all the point of this fishbowl debate. So I will maybe recall to the one who are not familiar and to our participants what is a fishbowl debate. So we have here 6 participants with 2 empty chairs. These 2 empty chairs have to be filled during the debate. They wait for you to come there to sit and to take part in the debate, in the discussion, and not all the time, because we hope that you will be a lot to come to sit there and go back to your place. Another one will take the place at the participants' table. The idea is to ask questions, give your opinions, and to say if you do not agree of what the politicians do say with what the philosophers do say. We have 6 prominent speakers today, so I will begin by the politicians. First of all, Mr. Karl-Heinz Lambers, first Vice President du Comité des Régions, very well-known personality here in Belgium. So he will maybe tell us why now are Belgians so disappointed also about Europe. That was one of the news of the week, a sad news of the week. So we have Mr. Georgios Kaminis. You are the mayor of Athens. And you are also a member of the Comité des Régions, and you will tell us about maybe the perception in Greece about Europe. And we had the impression that we were optimistic and you were the pessimists, but maybe it's the other way around now about the future of Europe. Mr. Nicolas Schmid, you are Minister of Employment and Migration in Luxembourg, so you know Europe very well from the inside, and so you will see if you share or the optimism or the pessimism, and what are your views on the future of Europe, and also of the way we can cope with the challenge of sharing values. On the side of the philosophers, we have Mrs. Susan George. You're very well known as a very provocative person, so we hope you will do so. So you're the director, president of the Transnational Institute in Amsterdam, and former or honorary president of ATTAC France. And so I'm looking forward to know your solution about the democratization of Europe and how you think that population, people, citizens can participate in the debate, because it's something we have a lot of problems to cope with and we don't know how to do it. So we have Philippe Van Parijs, a philosopher from the UCL, and who was director of the Chaire d'éthique ouvert at the UCL, and is a very well-known person here in Belgium, but a very defender of the European ideas, and maybe also a very active citizen in Brussels, participating in the live democracy, and fighting for people to take their own fate in their hands and push politicians to do things they don't necessarily want to do. And then Sławomir Sierakowski, you are the director of Krytyka Polityczna and political philosopher. You said you're a sociologist, but philosopher, you can deal with it. And so I'm looking forward to hear about common values coming from Poland. So you know there are some problems sometimes to understand, so we will see. Yeah. So we will hear about it probably from you. So the idea is that each of them has 2 minutes to give their own opinion or state of view about one of the themes of tonight. There are 3 themes we would like to cover. They are too large for 1 hour, so we will try. First one is common values, second one is globalization, and then future of Europe. Has Macron solved the problem by being there, or has he just give us an illusion that it can be solved? We will deal with that subject at the end of the panel. So each of them will have 2 minutes to talk about this, give the point of view he wants to give about one of the themes or all of the themes, and then I will have a discussions with them. There will be no formal Q&A, so that's why if you want to intervene, if you want to say something, if you disagree, if you agree, if you are angry, if you think I let them talk too much, raise your hand, come here, take part, okay? So, floor is yours, but 2 minutes, not 10. Thank you. So we will begin, Mr. Karl-Heinz Lambers, politician first.
Vous savez, quand on a 65 ans, comme c'est mon cas, on n'est plus à l'aube, mais au crépuscule de sa vie politique. Et ça permet alors aussi d'être très franc. Moi, je suis extrêmement déçu de ce que nous vivons en Europe pour l'instant, et néanmoins, je reste un Européen convaincu. Je suis entré en politique il y a maintenant presque 40 ans, parce que je croyais en Europe. J'avais rencontré des jeunes tchécoslovaques à l'époque qui était en Allemagne quand les Russes sont entrés à Prague. Et cette rencontre a été pour moi quelque chose de très fondamental dans ma vie. Alors, cette Europe, elle est indispensable, mais elle fonctionne mal. Et les objectifs, les valeurs sont simples. L'Europe, c'est une combinaison intelligente existant nulle part ailleurs de cette façon-là, entre les valeurs de liberté et de solidarité. Et tout se joue entre ces deux éléments-là. Plus bref encore, nous devons avoir un monde où on ne gagne pas plus de l'argent en plaçant de l'argent que par le travail ou l'entrepreneuriat honnête. Quelqu'un qui travaille du matin au soir doit pouvoir nourrir soi-même et sa famille avec cela. Et les chances d'un jeune dans la vie ne peuvent pas dépendre de la richesse de ses parents. Voilà quelques éléments qu'on ne sait pas réaliser aujourd'hui quand on ne travaille que dans un État déterminé, aussi grand soit-il, que ce soit le Grand-Duché du Luxembourg ou la petite Allemagne. Ça ne marche plus, il faut une approche au moins continentale. Et là, les collectivités territoriales, parce que je dois un peu prêcher pour mon église aussi, ou ma chapelle, les collectivités territoriales, les villages, les communes, les villes, les régions sont l'endroit où très probablement se jouera maintenant le devenir de l'Union européenne, parce que c'est là où les gens font leur jugement. Pourquoi les Belges sont à 58% mécontents de l'Europe? C'est parce qu'ils ont, à juste titre ou à mauvais titre, la conviction que ce qui se passe chez eux n'est pas quelque chose qui est bon, qui ne résout pas les problèmes et pour lesquels l'Europe a une grande responsabilité. Les gens ne différencient pas entre les niveaux de pouvoir. La multi-level governance, la subsidiarité et autres concepts de ce genre, les gens ne savent rien faire avec ça. Ils voient si la politique fonctionne ou ne fonctionne pas. Et si on sait que beaucoup d'enjeux ne peuvent être résolus que par une approche européenne, il faut s'organiser en conséquence pour que chaque niveau de pouvoir puisse agir convenablement. Et là, c'est essentiel que le citoyen et la citoyenne, localement et régionalement, aient intellectuellement et sentimentalement la conviction que l'Europe, c'est quelque chose qui fait du bon travail, qui est un avantage, qui améliore les chances de vie de soi-même et de ses enfants.
Philippe Van Parijs.
2 minutes for 2 philosophical insights about Europe, which I'll borrow from 2 great philosophers and political economists from the past. One, John Stuart Mill, writing in 1861. He notes that multinational political entities can live for centuries, providing their institutions remain despotic. But as soon as democracy comes in, they fall apart. Democratic institutions, he says, are near to impossible if there are several nationalities, especially if they speak different languages. As a Belgian, I know what he's talking about. As a European, I'm also full of admiration for what has been achieved in Europe so far, but fully aware of the huge challenge ahead, for the reason well described in that chapter of one of the first treatises of democracy. Insight number 2, from Friedrich Hayek, writing in 1939. Friedrich Hayek, there, in an article entitled The Economic Conditions of Interstate Federalism, Friedrich Hayek there makes an enthusiastic plea for a multinational federation of a sort that resembles very much to what the European Union is today. Why is he so enthusiastic? Because of the combination of 2 features of this multinational federation. One, because it operates with a single market. The various member states lose the ability to interfere with the market, their ability to impose regulations, to redistribute within their population is massively reduced as a result of the tax, regulatory, and social competition between the various member states. But at the same time, because the federation is multinational and because it operates on a large scale, this federation is unable to lift to its own level what the various member states used to do at the national level before. Why not? Two reasons, which he neatly described very insightfully. One is the objective situations, which means that what is good for one part of the federation is not necessarily good for the other. For example, if you try to impose a minimum wage common to the whole federation, it's good for the high productivity countries and a disaster for the low productivity countries if you have this minimum wage at the same level. And we know today that what he was talking about can become reality. And the second reason why this will not be possible at the multinational level is that there is no common identity of the sort that exists within each of the national states. You can't rely on this identity in order to bring forth a sufficient level of solidarity. Can you imagine, he says, that the clerk in the city of London will be willing to pay more for his bicycle because that helps the Belgian worker? And this rhetorical question is meant to settle the issue. And so I believe that the task today consists in achieving what has been partly achieved and what John Stuart Mill thought was nearly impossible, and above all, to manage to do what Hayek thought and hoped would be impossible at the level of the European Union, namely regain at the level of the European Union as a whole the political capacity to do or to gain that political capacity when in fact the economic capacity to do it as a low level has been lost as a result of the single market.
Mr. Kaminis?
Well, thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Now, I will try to say what I have prepared, but at the same time, I have some commentaries to make on what I have heard. So, on the one hand, we have Europe, and Europe is very young as a new entity, intergovernmental. On the other hand, we have the experience of the United States, let's say. United States had never been so united as we think they were. They had the experience of civil war. Still, you have in the southern states people that have not the flag of the federation, but the flag of the confederation of the 19th century. So a common identity is on the doing, is something that you don't have it one day, you go on and build it. And then, in those kinds of composed situations, you have many levels where you can have arrangements and compromises. Maybe, okay, something that in this issue is good for the Belgian and bad for the Englishman, in some other issue, there's a counterpart. So it's something on the going and many compromises at the same time. And then about democracy, my last comment. Maybe because we come from local administration, local authorities. I'm a mayor since 2011. I believe that great part of the future of democracy is in the cities. Globalization, through globalization, you see that the borders, little by little, are fading. But you see cities that emerge as entities. And whether you are a mayor in a small city or even a big city like Athens, you are accountable. It's in the heart of democracy, accountability. You cannot avoid your responsibilities. You cannot prepare a draft legislation and pass it from the parliament and pretend that, okay, I have done my job. You have to produce results and people judge you from that. So I leave it for the discussion, cities and their role in democracy.
Mrs. George?
Well, first, warm thanks to the FEPS for giving me this opportunity to affirm my fervent belief that the European Union is one of the best ideas in history, and that together we can safeguard European values and prevent the EU from committing suicide. The EU must cease to deny democracy and listen to citizens, and here are a few examples I hope we can discuss. In 2005, the Commission ignored the results of the French and Dutch referenda on the Constitutional Treaty and followed the Commissioner who said, "We must not give in to blackmail." So much for democracy. They gave us the Lisbon Treaty instead, a faithful copy of the same treaty we had just rejected. Since Maastricht, all the treaties impose harsh economic rules and arbitrary numbers. Values should be eternal, but economic situations and doctrines change and should not be constitutionalized. The only other constitution to impose an economic model was the one written by the Politburo in 1936 for the USSR. The Commission welcomes the advice of huge corporations and their lobbies and refuses to instate a compulsory lobby register. Corporations also design trade treaties. When in 2014, citizens asked for an official citizens' initiative on the TTIP and the CETA, the Commission refused. But the European Court of Justice recently ruled that it had denied democracy, democratic expression, and should have honored our request. And just to comment one instant on Philippe, the situation of European NGOs is quite different from what Hayek predicted, because on the TTIP, we had a very strong coalition of NGOs from everywhere, and we organized our own self-sufficient European Citizens Initiative, in which 21 countries met their quotas, and 3.4 million citizens voted for. So that is perhaps at the level at which it can work for the moment. Neoliberalism has become our state religion. It rewards elites, punishes ordinary working people, causes huge inequalities, dismantles social protection, and ignores the environment. Austerity is harmful, but it seems to be here to stay. Socialists, I am sorry to say, have too often acquiesced and supported such policies. This strategy is a disaster. I beg you to take a hard look at the fate of the party in France. Progressives must insist on democracy, side with the people, and protect the environment, or populism and narrow-minded nationalism will win. Socialists must not commit suicide, nor must Europe.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you very much. First, thank you very much for organizing this debate, and thank you for having the honor to debate also with philosophers, people who should inspire more politics and politicians. I think that it's not Europe the problem. It's not Europe. I think Europe is still a very attractive idea. Europe is still fascinating a lot of young people who consider that Europe is their life, Europe is their real world. What is the problem is the policies which have been conducted in the name of Europe by national governments. It's not Europe as such, an unknown personality which conducts these policies. It's the governments in the European Union. And here I think we have experienced periods where, I join exactly what has been said, an ideology has inspired, or even more than inspired, the policies which have been imposed. And this identification with Europe on one hand, and this ideology, let's call it the neoliberal ideology, is what Europe is suffering from. That's why the British people finally also partly voted for Brexit. it's also for these reasons where the referenda at that time failed. And I was in the convention. And at that time, I was campaigning for a yes. But today, I would be much more nuanced. Because you have one very important point. It was not a constitution. It was not a real constitution. It was perhaps a constitution in the sense, as you mentioned, some other unions had proposed. It was finally all the treaties put together with the name constitution ahead. And that was not a real constitution, because constitutions should be the foundation of democracy. And that was not the foundation of a European democracy. So we failed. At the beginning, the idea was to be the foundation of a European democracy. But finally, this objective was not obtained. And that's finally, people understood that, and that was also the result. Now, I think the basic point is, what can progressive bring to that new Europe? What can progressives make, how can progressive help to make this Europe more democratic, more understandable for the citizens, and finally reconcile the citizens with the initial European project? This project has two promises: peace, or perhaps three, as you mentioned: peace, freedom, and prosperity for all. And peace, well, it's shaky around the European Union, so we have to work on that. Freedom, we see inside the European Union, there are more and more regimes which talk about the illiberal democracy, and prosperity for all, we are far from it.
So it's your turn.
I just want to make two quite basic points concerning my region. It's not much philosophy, actually. I would like to have it more, but it's not very complex to predict what could be the black and white scenario for the future of Europe. I think it's like either Iron Curtain, the new one, or European integration. Iron Curtain, actually, it's not an incident, it's a kind of a standard for Europe. Just to give you a simple number, for more than 250 years out of 300 years, Poland was either not on a map or was just subordinated to other countries without any democracy, liberalism, or independence. And it's not much different for Czech Republic, Hungary, and many other countries in this region. So, and actually, at least Poles, they feel it, because to give you another number, 88% of Poles support the idea of European integration. It's not a Euro-enthusiastic society, it's a Euro-fanatic society. And it's a terrible paradox that we have this kind of authorities. But don't forget that the Polish government never had a larger majority in each of those struggles, be it constitutional court, NGOs, public media, whatever, never had majority. You always had majority against. In much worse situation is Hungarian society. So I think for Poles it's a temporary situation, but for Hungarians we really should do something for international pressure. But this is significant, but only just only to mention it. But so like for Brexit, UK can afford it. Trump, USA can afford it. But populism for our countries usually used to mean losing of independence. Because independence for Poland comes from not John Paul II, even solidarity, comes from geopolitics. And geopolitics is European integration in a good scenario. So, third number, if you ask Poles in a public, I'm a sociologist, so you can see it now. In a public poll, if you ask Poles, what are you scared for, what are you afraid of, more people will be afraid of the decay of European integration than of losing Polish independence, like numbers are almost equal, or the German domination in economy, whatever. But the decay of European integration is always the first point. My second point would be, if we talk about Europe, don't forget that European Union, it's not entire Europe. We shouldn't forget about other countries, and it's very, very important. When we have so many troubles, so many problems, we refugee crisis, economic crisis, other troubles, we still have to remember, it's easy to forget other countries, but we still have them. And we used to remember always the simple thing. Why EU was established? Was it liberal democracy? It was not the priority. Of course it helps, no question about it. It's connected, no question about it. Was it welfare? Not. It was not a priority as well. It was to prevent the war. And we have still the war in Ukraine. And it's not a cold war. Every day almost every day people are losing lives. Nowhere in any European square, in any European country, 100 people died under European Union flags. Was it only in Kiev? So I think it means an obligation for EU. It means obligation not only for Poles, who of course are scared of Russia. This is why we love Ukraine so much. But we should, with all of us, for pragmatic or romantic reasons, whatever, we should always remember about our eastern and southern friends. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, first question would be, we say that Europe is based on common values, normally. We thought that. But is it really so? Isn't it that we are divided, in fact, east and west, north and south, by ideas that in some countries we do believe that austerity is bad for the people, but in other countries they think that it's the way to get out of the problems, that you have to put economic rules in a text, in a constitution, to be sure that people would be strictly following the rules and being performant and then being able to distribute. And we have now a new division, which is a division to what concerns identity. So some people do think that our identity is multicultural, and other people do think that it's better not be multicultural, or as multicultural as others would like it to be. So do we still share common values? Philippe Van Parijs?
I've never liked this idea of European values, because when you travel around the world and you go to Canada or you go to Australia or even you go to India, you discover to what extent the people there, or certainly the people we talk to, are committed to a number of values which are also central to the European project. So trying to single out a number of values which we would appropriate as saying these is our values, I find that's the wrong way to go. What is important is to see that there are a number of things that will only succeed if we do them together, and that's why the European Union is so important. At the same time, we must realize that in order to save a number of things which we regard as crucial for the doing together, especially solidarity, a particular notion of social justice, that this will only be realized if we get out of the trap in which we are at the moment. And that's Hayek's trap. That's a neoliberal trap. And he says, read that text. At the very end of that text, he says what he calls the liberal project, that is, in fact, the neoliberal program. And this idea of multinational federation, these are complementary. You can't have one without the other. And this is really the trap in which we've fallen, of course, in a way with good reasons, because you can understand the European leaders at the beginning, where the priority was precisely getting rid of the war and this constant preparation for war among neighbors. And of course, one of the intelligent ways of doing so, that's the old Montesquieu's idea, yet another philosopher, about le doux commerce, where, and the transformation of passions into interests, where interests can help us master our passions, which can be murderous passions. And so thanks to this exchange, thanks to the development of a market, well, our relationship with our neighbors has changed because we have these contacts. But if you let that go too far, you realize that the very process through which we are being pacified, the market, is also something that enslaves us. That is, that imposes such constraints on our government, which in the beginning you don't really feel, because the mobility is not very high. But the more these four freedoms, freedom of movement, of capital, of goods, of services, and of people, the more they deepen, and they are not just formal possibilities, but people make use of it, the more restricted the ability of the various European nation states to preserve what we say is our beautiful European model that manages to combine freedom and solidarity. And this is what you can call European values, not because it's a list that we have the monopoly of. I mean, throughout the world you have people who defend them, but they must remain central in our project in Europe. And in order to do so, we need to act, and to act urgently, and including by making the institutional changes. Also, and that's also why I speak English, by creating the sheer sort of very Aralsol preconditions, which is just be able to communicate together more easily and more cheaply, and we'll only be able to do that thanks to a lingua franca. And that we shouldn't let the powerful appropriate monopolize the capacity to coordinate, to mobilize with each other.
A reaction? Do you share the opinion of Philippe Bonpareil? It says a bit the same that Susan George, who says that in Europe values have been replaced by economic rules. So we did move from the one to the other very fast. That's our main...
If we talk about European values, I agree that something like this actually don't exist. I mean, but what exists is like liberalism. Then you can find it in Canada, even in India somewhere sometimes, and in Europe, of course. And to tell you and the difference, and it's very important to realize that though they are connected and intertwined with liberal democracy, these are two different philosophical traditions. And exactly today, we see the consequence. Because what is attacked now, it's not necessarily democracy, it's more liberalism. Because democracy, populists like democracy, they can win it, they can use it also. Usually they say, if we take over free media, when we take over courts and judiciary, we do it because only we are democratically elected. So anybody who disagrees with democracy, attacks democracy. It's a very tricky argument, very efficient as well. The thing is that what they really dislike is independent institutions. And this tradition of free media, separation of power, the balance of power, checks and balances, it comes from the liberal tradition, not necessarily the democratic tradition. And my conclusion would be, it's quite easy to impose democracy. You need free elections, you need like procedures mostly. It's very hard to impose liberalism. To have liberal democracy, you need to have liberals. And you cannot switch, like in 1989, from communism to democracy, and to change the society from the society without liberals to have a society with liberals. Imagine that you have a society full of nationalists, xenophobics, homophobes, and so on, and you impose democratic procedures. Would you really have, after elections, liberal democracy?
Mrs. George?
I think I don't entirely agree with Philippe, because I'm a great believer in the Enlightenment. The revolutions in the United States and France were singular events in world history, and these two countries have treated things very differently. The US Constitution is about 5,000 words long, which contains just about only values and a few rules. And the European Constitution, which became incredibly a bestseller in France during the whole campaign against the constitutional treaty, was a huge tome, and you had to go from article this to article that, then to article something else to find out what was really going on. And when you did that, you discovered all kinds of things that you wanted nothing to do with. So I think that the values as expressed in the Enlightenment, as expressed in the first constitutions of France and in the United States, are still valid, and I'm not sure at all that they exist to that degree in Asia. And by this I mean equality before the law. None of these are perfect, right? These are still all in realization. But the notion of human rights itself begins with the 18th century, and we have to keep expanding them to women, to LGBT people, to different colors of people, etc., etc. And this is a work in progress, and probably always will be. But I think we have a separation of church and state, which is extremely valuable, and these must be perfected, but they must not be abandoned.
You said that progressists did think that their values were forever, and that they didn't have to be defended. So you said in a way that the progressist politicians failed to defend their ideas. It was a defeat. They were defeated.
Well, if those were really their ideas, I mean, there are judicial means of making them defend those ideas if they don't. But if you separate the powers, then you have a free judiciary which can say yes or no. You are defending the values and you are defending the letter and the spirit of the law.
Maybe I'm turning to the room. Do you have to express do you want to express something about the role of the politicians in the way, you know, the values, the common values, the idea of common values in Europe was defeated or is at risk or is suiciding? Can you sit there?
Okay. Thank you. My name is Professor Linson. I'm a neuroscientist. I won't be too disruptive this evening. I'll leave that for tomorrow. But concerning values, well, values like culture, these are double-edged swords. I think it is now necessary to explore how we can constructively articulate the values together in order to achieve and sustain the citizens' well-being, quality of life, and world society, which is, after all, the third millennium's top priority. That's all I wanted to say for the moment.
A reaction? Mr. Schmidt?
Well, I agree that the European values are also present in other parts of the world because they are, in a way, universal values coming from the Enlightenment, and they are shared by many people in the world. But I cannot imagine a European project without these values. This is the issue. And this is put into question. So these values or principles of democracy and also human values, they are put into question.
You mean by specific countries?
Including by political forces in Europe, in some way by governments, very clearly, and this puts the European project now under heavy pressure. I could not imagine a country where the equality of men and women is not respected joining the European Union, because we consider that this is something which structures our European value system.
I disagree, respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. Because I'm going back to this notion of European identity. If you consider a European identity, then there is a non-European identity. So you are, again, fragmenting the whole. And regarding a European project, I'm sorry, well, as far as we are concerned, we completely reject the white paper on the future of Europe. Because the Europe as structured today is not sustainable. We are faced with a global network of interconnected global challenges that can only be appropriately managed by first setting up a new global governance infrastructure. This is becoming increasingly recognized and mainstream. So the best hope for Europe, to my mind, is to prepare the transition for new global governance. And in fact, Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron said there was a need to reconstruct Europe, reorganize Europe, but are more open to the world. Well,
Mr. Lamberts, do you want to answer, or Mr. Kaminis? Thank you. I mean, you can empty the chair. Thank you.
Je ne crois pas que l'Europe a le monopole de quelque valeur que ce soit. Mais la coexistence en Europe, avec notre diversité extraordinaire, qui est d'ailleurs beaucoup plutôt régionale que nationale quand on va au fond des choses, cette coexistence dépend de deux choses. d'abord d'une ouverture. Si je prends mon identité régionale comme quelque chose qui se définit contre tout le reste du monde, alors je me replie sur moi-même. Si je considère par contre que mon identité forte est une façon de m'ouvrir aussi vers d'autres et d'échanger et de coopérer, alors j'ai une position beaucoup plus constructive. Et si je veux vivre en Europe, ensemble, dans ce continent qui est un des plus petits qui existe, et en tout cas celui qui a la plus haute densité en frontières nationales, alors je dois coopérer. Et pour arriver à coopérer, je dois partager un certain nombre de valeurs. Que d'autres les partagent aussi au monde, tant mieux. Mais il faut des choses qu'on partage. Et un élément fondamental, je crois, c'est la tolérance. Accepter que je ne suis pas le seul à avoir raison et qu'il y a un minimum de choses que je dois partager avec tout le monde si je veux vivre ensemble. Et là, nous sommes, depuis la crise de la migration tout particulièrement, quand même un peu déçus, je crois, de ce que nous croyons être comme une société ouverte et solidaire. Nous voyons que l'Europe ne fonctionne pas comme ça maintenant, et là, il y a un gros problème.
Mr. Kaminis?
Yes. First, about the values. Of course, we have the same values, and even in more sometimes advanced state in Canada or Australia. But they came from Europe. They were born here. The freedom of speech, everything, the Enlightenment. So there is something European, and we have to keep it. Today, this morning, I addressed the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. There you have 47 European countries. And there you realize that everyone respects some things that they don't respect when they speak in their national parliaments. They don't respect when they speak in the European Parliament. But there, where is the hardcore of the rule of law and of human rights, the Council of Europe, and I mean not mainly the Assembly, I mean the court, the European Court of Human Rights, you see that there is something that exists in common. And we have this dialectic between values and between interests. In the European Union, you have more interests than values. In the European Council, you have more values than interests. Mm-hmm. It's an ongoing process, very contradictory, very complex, but I believe that Europe must exist. Why? Because its relation to these values is an existential relation. Those values were born here. And the second thing is that Europe must be antagonistic in a very antagonistic environment. No European country can survive alone, having to do with the giants, China, United States, etc.
It was said that one of the problems is the impression that the citizens have that that are not involved, they can't give their own opinion. So it's a problem of democratization of the European project. You talked about the NGOs and the way the people express their view on the CETA, TTIP, and so on. Is there a way to democratize Europe, to open the space for the citizen in the debate, in the European debate? So maybe someone here in the room. Erasmus. Does Erasmus is enough? Is Erasmus enough to do so, or does someone have ideas to implicate the citizen in the debate, or yeah? Come here. In Belgium we tried to make assemblies where people were just tirés au sort, and then they could express their view and give their advice to politicians. So I don't know if you have such ideas. Sit down.
Thank you. My name is Luca. I am a committed pro-European. The answer is simple. In my view, our national media don't speak about Europe enough. People don't know Europe. They don't know what we're doing. I'm a Robert Schuman trainee. I work in Parliament. They don't know what we do in Brussels. European Union is the biggest donor for development cooperation. They don't know anything about that. European Union supports democracy in third countries. People back home don't know anything about that. We should start, media should start, also we citizens, we should start speaking, really speaking about Europe broadly, what Europe does, what achievements Europe was able to get, let's say. So,
is it a way towards democratization, media, or how can we implicate the citizens in a better way than what it's done now? Because people do vote, but they don't vote that much for the European elections. They are not really interested in the European debate. So how can we make that people do?
It's true that Europe is far away, but I can tell you that in the French and Dutch debates, we had huge turnouts. We had 70% of the people who came and voted, and they voted 55% against the constitutional treaty. So when there's something that it has been explained, when they understand what the issues are, when they know what it would mean for their own lives, they come out. And that is, but we can't educate people on everything. I mean, we are poor NGOs, mostly, not desperately poor, but most of our work is volunteer. We do, and I would just like to comment on what our friend Nicolas said about the Commission and the governments, because I know that the Commission always blames the member states and vice versa. So we don't know what's happening and who's doing it, really, except that there are some things that you can definitely figure out. Who is dictating to Greece? That we can understand very well. We don't need a primer to explain that to us. But if you're counting on NGOs to explain everything, there's so many things to campaign on and so many things that are going wrong that I'm a little pessimistic. I think that if it doesn't come from the top, then the bottom cannot always make it rise.
Is it true? It has to come from the top, Philippe?
Yeah, well, let me first say something controversial. I mean, it's part of our job as philosophers, right, to do that. So I don't think that democracy is a name in itself, that it's a value in itself. Democracy is just a very important means in order to achieve justice. And justice is just policies, just institutions are policies that can be reasonably accepted by all the people affected, taken as free and equal persons. That's the objective. And then we need to, of course, we need something like a democracy in order to achieve that. And that is with voting rights for everyone, something like that, but not any democracy. And among the millions of forms of democracy, we need to shape our democracies in such a way that this can be achieved. One of the many crucial questions is, of course, the level at which we want these democracies to work. For some matters, it's very important that it should be at a very low level, because the accountability to the citizens is greatest at that level, because they know their vote counts when there are 25,000 voters, far more than when there are 400 million voters. But for some issues, our democracy needs to be built on a higher level and all the intermediate levels. That's one crucial question. But then another question is then, what is it that matters really and that would help our democracies to achieve justice? Well, it's not just the aggregation of the interests of the people in the voting booths, but it is the fact that our democracies work through deliberation, through people having to justify their policies. I love this expression by Jon Elster, the Norwegian philosopher who is at the Collège de France and Columbia University, who says the key quality of a democracy that functions well is the civilizing force of hypocrisy. The civilizing force of hypocrisy. And what does that mean?
Yeah, which means what?
And what it means is that the people who want to govern, who want to defend their policies in front of an assembly, whatever their motivation, however selfish it is, they can't say, vote for my policies, vote for me because it's better for me. They can't say, vote for me because it's better for the people who paid for my campaign. They can't say, vote for me because it's better for the rich in these countries, even if that is their objective. That doesn't matter so much. What they have to say, vote for me, vote for my policies because they serve the general interest. or because they are better for the poorest in our country, the most vulnerable. This is acceptable. Now, that means that because you have to justify it in front of everyone, all the people, at least your own electorate, all of them, you have to use that language. That civilizes the words. Of course, what we want is not just the words to be civilized, but also the deeds, also the acts. And for that, and that's what you said was so important, for that to happen, you don't only need to have these people, the governors, forced to say that, you need to have an opposition that is sufficiently alert and sufficiently honest and sufficiently well-informed, and that in terms relies on having free media, and media that do their job, that is, well, there is a media person who, including this morning, dares to say things, even if people don't like them, because they believe this is the truth. And this has an impact on policies and on decisions made by people. You need the media that are right, you need the NGOs, you need the academics who do their job, who also say what they believe is the truth, not what is going to please the politicians.
Mr. Tsiolkovsky?
So let me disagree with you with both cases. One is that, and this is the answer, I'm not sure if Beatrice would agree with me, but actually we both work for media. I'm mostly recognized as a political commentator for New York Times or Project Syndicate or other newspapers. They don't write about EU because people don't want to read it. And
market logic.
You cannot force them. I mean, it's a vicious circle, because if they don't write, people don't know. If they don't know, they are not interested, and so on. But this is actually how it works, okay? The books about EU are one of the least on the best-selling books. Like, never write a book about you if you want to have a success on a publishing market. This is the blunt, this is the horrible, the terrible reality. Of course, Erasmus and like this kind of programs, it's a solution that is very disappointing when you hear it, but it's a very small steps that you really have to make to have European citizens, to have European public sphere and European public opinion. You don't have it. You won't have European media without European public opinion. And without European public opinion, you won't have European state. It's again another, it's Benedict Anderson, who is anthropologist, but he said that, like, you know, the modern state became when the modern press emerged, okay?
But with this type of reasoning, you would never have a Macron daring making a program and an election on the European themes, because that's something that was really important, also psychologically. I don't know, you told me in an interview that you were believing in the way Macron was talking and the way he was giving to the people to say Europe can be a solution, and we have to in some way believe in Europe again. So the speech can be very important too. I don't know if you want to say this. I mean, do you feel as politicians that being a European fanatic or being a European defender, that you are not so popular, that you lose contact with the population, that it's not a way to talk to people, that people are not interested? Do you believe that? Mr. Schmidt?
No, I think when I talk about Europe, I talk about what I would like to do in Europe. What kind of policies do I want for Europe? That's what I want to discuss, not about an abstract Europe. That's not the reality people are living. People want to know, what is Europe doing for me, for my very concrete life? Is that a Europe where there is only the market dimension and the rest doesn't count? Therefore, I'm very critical with this scenario game. It gives you the illusion that all kinds, the 4 or 5 scenarios are equal. They are not equal, because they do not deliver the same thing for people. When I say, well, I'm just for Europe, of market Europe, we are with Hayek. Well, I know that there is no social dimension, there is no protection. Therefore, Macron won this election on the European program, because he said, I want a Europe which protects. That's a concrete idea, protects. Because people feel, thanks to globalization and Europe being identified as part of globalization, that Europe doesn't protect anymore.
We have a participant.
Thank you. I think we need to denationalize, if you want, the European election. we need to have a European political program, a socialist program, and we need a candidate, like we had with Martin Schulz last time round, who stands for, if you want, a European program. That will start to create a European public opinion and will start to create some interest. It was very, very early last time, but yes, there was more interest in the European nature of the last European election in many member states than there have been in the past. And that's the way we should be going, and that's what we should be doing. And yes, many of the things that people like Susan George said should be in that programme, but that's a debate between the parties as to what our programme's going to be.
Yes. So, Europe is not on the news. Why? Because it's very boring. Europe is boring, the European Union and what it does, because it gives big importance to very small things, secondary things, on where you are going to fish and how you are going to make, I don't know, the olive oil and things like that, and doesn't give, Europe is absent from the important things. I mean, international relations, common defense, things like that. So when we say we need a strong Europe, we need a Europe that takes care of the important things and not only social protection. Okay, it's fundamental, but we need a Europe that's not boring.
Mr. George?
I would like to comment on President Juncker's selection of ways forward, which I thought was in extreme poverty. There's no sixth scenario that says what we need is an all-out program to protect the environment and stop climate change and improve people's lives. There was nothing social and nothing environmental in it at all. And on the media, you know, you also have to ask who owns the media. One of our most important papers is partially owned by a man called Alain Minc, and Alain Minc said, and I will quote him first in French because he was speaking about President François Hollande, and he said, "Au moins il nous aura débarrassé du socialisme." At least he will have got rid of socialism for us. And that's true. He has done. Now, if we don't have I agree with our friend who says that we need a program and a candidate, but we need one who goes much farther than, as much as one can admire Martin Schulz, who did run the parliament fairly well, or did what he could, we need somebody who is much more solid than that.
I would like to ask you, because Macron is, for a lot of politicians, when we interview politicians, they always say, no, solution is Macron for all the problems we have to cope with, or national or European. So would you call him a progressist?
D'abord, je dirais que Macron est une solution pour rien du tout. Macron a gagné des élections contre des partis qui étaient extrêmement faibles et il a un mérite, il a évité que l'extrême droite française soit devenue le vainqueur d'une élection qui aurait alors complètement changé la donne en Europe. Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que Macron a gagné une élection avec des thèmes européens. Mais maintenant, il faut qu'il puisse faire la preuve de ce qu'il fera et, à mon avis, son idée de dire « je suis ni de droite ni de gauche » est une idée qui ne va pas tenir très longtemps parce que j'ai l'impression qu'il faut parfois dire qu'on est soit de gauche, soit de droite si on veut vraiment arriver à un résultat, mais il faut aussi avoir la capacité de compromis, ce qui est parfois aussi quelque chose qu'on oublie notamment au niveau de la gauche, mais il faut surtout être clair sur ce qu'on décide à quel niveau. L'Europe doit, comme dit le bourgmestre d'Athènes, celui qui décide dans les grands enjeux. Et de grâce qu'on laisse le reste aux collectivités territoriales et à ceux qui sont près de la population. Et là, nous devons vraiment faire la preuve maintenant que nous sommes capables de faire plus de justice. Je suis assez d'accord quand on dit la démocratie n'a pas une valeur en soi, c'est une méthode de gouverner. Il faut décider, parce que si on ne décide rien, on ne fera rien non plus. Et décider en démocratie, c'est quand même un peu plus raisonnable, pas toujours plus efficace qu'en dictature. Mais je crois que la démocratie en tant que telle est quand même quelque chose qui mérite d'être défendu. Mais il faut arriver à produire des résultats. Et là, le test pour Macron, c'est de savoir est-ce qu'il saura faire prendre des décisions en France et surtout, est-ce qu'il saura être un des moteurs d'une évolution en Europe, parce que dire que le grand espoir de le Jésus-Christ de l'Europe, c'est Macron, d'abord, je ne crois pas qu'il faut un Jésus-Christ pour améliorer l'Europe, mais il ne faut pas être naïf, il faut un repositionnement partout en Europe si on veut arriver à un résultat.
We don't need Jesus Christ to save Europe, l'homme providentiel, la femme providentielle. Est-ce qu'il n'y a pas un moment donné, we need somebody who dares, gives the direction and you know, having... Yeah, I ask you about Macron, because some people do think that
I don't want to comment that much on just the French economy, although I feel very battered by the elections we've just had. But Macron, you're quite right, was elected by 15 or 16% of the people. The abstentions were enormous for the second round of the legislative elections. Not everybody understands that in French elections, you vote in the first round for who you really want, and then you vote against somebody in the second round. And I voted for Macron, but it was really against Marine Le Pen. So I think we need a different system, like a 1, 2, 3 system. I can't live with this one, but I could accept as a second or third choice that one. We need something very, very different. But that's all I want to say about French elections, because I think the problem is European-wide. I think everybody's social protection is being gradually removed. I think that austerity is a terrible project, that it should not be constitutionalized, that you cannot say that an economic situation is going to last forever, and therefore we can only have one policy. And that's all we can have, and this is dictated by the North against the South, and this is a factor of terrible division, and it's going to infect the entire population of Europe.
Do you still believe that politicians can do that?
I think they could if they had some courage. They certainly could. They could get together, first of all. We should unite the people who believe in this sort of thing. It's not just the left. It's partly people who believe this sort of thing on the right. I think we could. I think it's achievable, and I think we have to go for it. But people ask me all the time, am I optimistic or pessimistic? This is about the same thing as your question. And I say, I don't know, because I can't read the future, but I have hope. And I think if we talk enough sense, and all of us are, I think this is a very good discussion, and more of these discussions should happen, and that we can go together in certain directions.
And I don't believe in politicians anymore, because I don't believe that party systems works. And it's not by chance that Macron said, "I'm not left, I'm not right." Like, if Macron, I'm very happy that he won, but he's a very good example of something that I would call enlightened populist. But he's still a populist. He promised everything for everybody by promising flexicurity. He said, I'm anti-elites, like Trump was anti-elites and anti-establishment, like almost every other populist was. He is enlightened populist, of course, and he did it being dressed in European Union flag, which is very, very surprising idea, and very successful it turned out to be. But as long as we have economy globalized and politics not globalized, party systems and politicians will give you either the loss or the cynicism. If they are cynical enough, they can rule their country, they can win election. If they're not, they will lose elections. This is the choice. I hope that this vicious circle will be broken, maybe by Macron creating at least a small step to integrate European Union at least a little bit economically, and then to democratize it, and then again, and then at the end, I hope that European Union will be integrated enough so it would touch the serious troubles. Because this is the truth. I agree with the mayor of Athens that as long as it is not democratized and integrated enough, it will be boring because it will touch only, third league issues.
So Macron, enlightened populist, that was to say?
You have nationalist, you have nationalist populists against enlightened populists.
Who wants
He's
to
a
comment on this,
neoliberal,
or?
I'm sorry. He's a neoliberal to the core.
And which is against what kind of argument of mine?
Populist, to me, is, I don't like the only negative definition of the populist. I think that populists, at least in United States history, were very often people who defended the ordinary people. And Macron is a thorough neoliberal, and he will defend the elites.
So we'll stop about Macron, because then just wanted to know if you had hope, if he was giving hope, but it's still to be discussed. Globalization, it's another theme of tonight, and solutions. What can be done practically to give back efficiency to the European project? To say that it was very important that what Macron said about protecting the people, that people have the desire to feel protected by Europe, and they didn't feel it anymore through migrants, maybe through the globalization. They were feeling a bit alone on the planet. So is a solution to be more efficient, to divide Europe in different parts, or to go at different speeds? Is it a solution? Because you are progressists, you want to give solutions. So it's the solution that is now on the table. It's a solution that is defended by Charles Michel in Belgium, but is trying to contaminate Mrs. Merkel and other persons in Europe. So would Europe work better if it was at different speeds?
Just very briefly. Again, I'm not principally against double speed or multi-speed Europe. The question is to do what? If it is to have in the core Europe more neoliberal policies, no, I'm not interested in this kind of multi-speed Europe. If it is really to have a more democratic, a more social, a defense dimension or a security dimension, a different policy in terms of migration and so on? Yes. So it's always tell me what the policies you are aiming at, and I tell you if I'm in favor of this model of integration, if this is the core issue. And that's the issue for progressives. I cannot just say, yes, I'm for a multi-speed Europe, but then, but for Mrs. Merkel, multi-speed Europe. No, I'm not in favor of that.
The most important is not the speed, the most important is the direction.
Yeah.
Yes, but...
You want something on globalization?
Yeah, but after that, but what if you believe that a solution for Europe was to work at a certain level with a smaller number of countries, because it can be more efficient? Philippe?
Well,
sorry, no, go ahead. I think one danger there is to make the European institutions even more complicated than they are. But what is clear is that the Eurozone needs a stronger form of governance, and something like that must happen. And what drives it, and that's why it's related to the theme of populism and globalization, is that I think we shouldn't do too much populism bashing. The threat of populism is an essential quality of a democracy, because democracies function with elites, and elites, like the people group in this room tonight, are people who have a tendency to forget that there are not only people like them, and not only the people who are in power like them, but also people who resemble them sociologically in all sorts of ways. The Erasmus people and so on. And for those people, the movers, the European Union has done a lot. There is no problem in getting their allegiance to Europe. But there are the people who feel forgotten, the stay-at-homes, and those people are mobilized by the populists from the right and from the left. And that is very important, that it should be so, because that's why the democratic leaders, unlike the despots and the bureaucrats and so on, are reminded that after all, they have to care about all the people and not only the people
Philippe,
like that.
a lot of people do say so, but what should be done in order to bring these people back, or to help them, or to sustain them?
That's why the theme of protection in Macron's discourse, but also in Juncker's discourse, and so many, finally people have understood that what will legitimize the European Union is not just a higher GDP or better competitiveness and so on, but to have people who are better protected by the Union, because the Union has been lifting all sorts of protections that came from the nation states. And in order to achieve that, we need also a stronger democratic governance, at least at the level of the Eurozone. That needs to be done urgently, and of course it needs not only a change of treaties, at some point a revolutionary change of treaties in order to enable our institutions to do what they want, not for the sake of saving
we have to get
Europe.
rid of the treaties with all the economic provisions.
Well,
that is something that is should be absolutely forbidden.
A government at the level of the Eurozone? Anybody has an idea on that, or does want to share something on that? Do you believe it's the solution? A government at the level of the Eurozone? Yeah? Okay, come on.
There should be some ladies coming too. It's a bit too monopolized by...
No, no.
Yes, about this democratization of the treaties for the Eurozone. You know, there is a big debate among intellectual elites, academic elites. Now, there is this book of Piketty about it. I know, for example, that Varoufakis, who now is at the same time an academic and a politician and a, I don't know, media star, is not in agreement with Piketty. They refuse to have a debate together. And on the other side, maybe it's not so clear the position of socialists, but maybe Schmidt can give us a better idea, or what is, apart the position, the possible alliance to make that among progressive and beyond progressive. So maybe it's a question for academics and politics at the same time.
Well, I think the position of the progressists or the social democrats or socialists, whatever you want, is very clear. We think that there is a very strong need for reforming the Eurozone. We need a strong governance. We need a minister of finance, as the chair of the group has said. We need democratic control. And I think this is the biggest issue. And that's also the more conflictual issue, which will raise very soon, because the Germans do not want this democratic control on the decisions of in the Eurozone, because all the decisions which were taken were not democratically legitimized at a real level. Maybe the German minister went to the Bundestag, but the Bundestag cannot decide for all the other members of the Eurozone. So there is the need for democratic control on the Eurozone. That's the biggest issue we have to resolve. But I agree, we need a different governance for the Eurozone.
Mrs. George?
I think our Greek friend could tell you that when Varoufakis went into the negotiating room in July of 2015, he came and said, I have a democratic mandate because the elections had just taken place, to which Schäuble replied, then it's mine against yours, and we know who won. And the thing that people are fed up with is that we have vertical politics in which you're allowed to vote once every 4 or 5 years.
And then shut up.
And that's that. And please shut up now. Whereas people really want horizontal politics, and they want to have channels so that they can contribute, because they have things to contribute. And what is democracy if it isn't understanding that everybody in this room knows things that I don't know? And perhaps I know 1 or 2 things that they don't know, but we need all of us, and we need all the other classes too, and we need particularly young people, etc. If we don't bring all that together, we'll never, if it's all people my age, it'll be hopeless.
That was your question, because you didn't ask what to do, but how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if I can ask the question more precisely, maybe it's not so clear the form of democratic control you imagine. So, for example, Piketty is proposing how would you call that? A parliamentarian assembly. So delegate from the national parliaments. Other people, like Varoufakis, say, no, that is not enough. And also it's not so good to create a division among European Union and Eurozone. So that's a bit the question, I mean, I ask to you also, I mean, to try to to have a reasoning together, academics and politics here. I don't know if there is the time, but it could be very interesting.
Somebody wants to answer? Mr. Lamberts?
Thank you. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm Hans Stetter, the Secretary General of FEPS, and I excuse myself that we are late. We had a long assembly, and it took a bit longer than it was foreseen, but thanks to each and everybody. But I would like to come in on especially that topic. We will have tomorrow morning a session called Rewriting the Rules. And I think this is something very important when we are talking on economic governance and we are talking on the question how the European Union should shape economic governance and how the European Union should apply rules. And one of the first things I would like to say, I'm an economist by profession, is we have at the moment a Stability and Growth Pact. There is something essential missing in that way and in that governance. We should argue as progressives for an employment, growth and stability pact. Employment is the first thing we need to assure in the European Union. If we have situations like in Spain where 50% of the young people have no job, if we have situations in France where more than 10% of the population is out of the work, we have only perhaps one or two, let's say at least 3 countries which have a kind of a question of full employment. We need to assure with policies we are doing, and there is fiscal policy, this is monetary policy, and this is also social policy, that we solve the question of the unemployment in the European Union through growth, what we can invent and what we can do, and this brings then also the stability needed. We can't do it the other way around, that we have rules saying, well, there is stability, you need 3% of the budget to be done, and that is not working, and it has not worked, and it will never work. This is just my little contribution I would like to give.
So I think we have 10 last minutes, or 5 minutes to conclude, 5 minutes. So you ask us to be positive, to give solutions and to give hope. So maybe I can ask each of the panelists, maybe the thing is wanting for Europe to happen in order to put Europe back on track, because you said Macron is maybe not enough, but what would be a condition to make Europe efficient again? What is for you the most important thing?
I think we don't have the time to change all the rules in Europe. We must deliver now. And for me and for the Committee of the Regions, we have certainly 2 points. We must concretely deliver in the migration issue, and we must concretely deliver with a strong cohesion policy for the next years. And then we can begin with reflection about all the other things we have to discuss. There are many things to discuss, but if we don't deliver in these 2 fundamental issues, then we can forget Europe, I think, for a long time.
Philippe?
One, it's important in Europe to be utopian. That is not just to have little mending policies for the immediate future, but to have a vision about the future. One of the things which I believe should be on the table, and I had to give a keynote speech today at this conference organized by the Commission today on tax policy, on social justice and taxation, and reply to one of the questions, I took the opportunity to defend a very simple utopian idea, which is the idea of a euro dividend. We need to do something unprecedented in the history of mankind, which is an interpersonal transfer system that crosses the borders of countries. It must be very simple, a sort of basic income at a low level, 200 euros funded by VAT. Why? One, in order to help create the sort of macroeconomic stabilizer which the euro needs. 2, to help create the sort of demographic stabilizer which the political sustainability of the Schengen Agreement needs. 3, to provide a floor under all our welfare states, not to substitute them, but to enable them to preserve their generosity and their diversity. And 4, we need to do, it's analogous to what Bismarck did at the end of the 19th century, when he realized a utopia even more radical at the time, which was the first system of social insurance, as a way of creating an allegiance between all the Germans separated by all sorts of borders and the new unified Germany. This is what Europe needs if its legitimacy to its citizens is going to be restored. Of course, it's utopian, but isn't the European Union itself a utopia, which many people thought was sheer nonsense for a long time?
Most people are left with very little money at the end of the month. And it is folly to believe that they can spend on goods that they might like to purchase, but that they can't. And therefore, we don't have an economy that circulates. You're absolutely right. But an employment policy that imagines that you have something at the end of the month, or you don't buy things that are made by our companies, and they don't invest because they have no need for further production. I mean, this seems so simple to me that I can't believe that we have to live with these stupid rules made up by we don't even know whom. No, we don't have the names. We don't have the names of anybody. We don't even know who wrote the TTIP mandate. We don't know who wrote the Lisbon Treaty. I've asked for these things from the Commission. I've not got answers. So more transparency, more emphasis on the environment. And I agree with almost everything that Philippe has said, so I won't take any more of the 10 minutes, but I think we've had a really good opportunity here, and I hope that this can continue and that the FEPS will encourage this kind of discussion, which has been both cordial, but I think tough, good.
Mr. Kamenis?
Well, there's not much to add. I would like a more attractive Europe, and the more attractive Europe is, as you said, a Europe that delivers, and a Europe that creates jobs. In my country, unemployment among young people is even higher. Huh? So those people, they are there, and they have this feeling that nobody cares about them. So it's something that is not only pathetic, it's urgent. We have to give urgent solutions to that. And the Europe that delivers is a Europe very energetic on the social issue, but also very energetic on the international scene. We need European governance.
So, Mr.
Taxes. Let's tax financial markets. There's 5.7 trillion every day traded on the derivatives market.
A tax strikes back.
5.7 trillion. Give me 1/10,000th of that in taxes. I can do quite a lot for European people.
Then when tax, let's democratize it. No taxation without democratization. But like discussing with Philip and ending, I don't agree that that democracy means, and it's about just. Majority can be very unjust to the minority. And just to give you a very brutal example, the massive anti-Semitism emerged when the empires collapsed and people get their votes, okay? So I would like to have rule of law, and I'm talking it as a Polish citizen, and I think it's very important to push it. And I think that those politicians who break rule of law should pay for it. So I want to have European Union when the European funds are connected to the respecting the rule of law. I would like to see Kaczynski breaking rule of law when we'll be
finished,
paid,
yeah,
when we will have to pay for it. Then next elections he will just lose.
Yeah. Mr. Schmidt.
Well, I think that as a progressive, because we are here to also to think about the progressive family, I think we need a clear vision, and I agree we need visions, not scenarios. We need visions for the future. And utopia is a nice word because it's a place which doesn't exist, but which finally can exist, maybe. And we need a progressive vision for Europe with very concrete policies. And we should not be, as progressives, the soft version of the austerity and neoliberal dogmas. We should be authentic. We should focus on all the issues people care about and should show that Europe is caring for the people. And this is the work we have now to do.
Give you the word for the conclusion.
Sorry, this is not normal to do a conclusion if you have not assisted at the debate. No, but I will say I look forward. I look forward for the day to tomorrow. I have to excuse our president Massimo D'Alema. We had a very tough General Assembly. He will be with us tomorrow morning, and I have also to inform that we have a new president, a woman, Maria Jo Rodriguez, who will come also tomorrow for the Call to Europe conference. I'm very happy to invite you. On behalf of FEPS now to a little reception because it's summer, so we can go out, we can have a drink, and we can chat a bit more. I think it was necessary to start the conference with this debate amongst philosophers and amongst politicians. Tomorrow we will have economists, and we will have in the afternoon people from civil society and academics concerning the democracy issue. Just to let you know, the conference will not take place here because tomorrow we expect much more people, and so we are in the MCE Management Center in Châtelain, Rue de l'Aqueduc, but I think everybody knows this already, and I do hope that we can resume and we can come together tomorrow morning at time, because we will have a very, very interesting debate between the Nobel Prize laureate Joseph Stiglitz and the European Commissioner Pierre Moscovici. I think this is a very good starting point and interesting one. Thank you very much and enjoy the reception, and thank you also for everybody and also for the moderation.
I will have to run away because I'm